Look, I think most people have this dream they want to grow up and be entrepreneurs. मेरा वो कोई कभी ख्वाब नहीं था. This life chose me. I did really choose this life.
Entrepreneurs are about, I believe, problem solvers, right? It's more about that. Especially when we talk about mobility for women in Pakistan. So that's not an easy problem to solve, of course.
For your first client, you're doing the sales. For the second one, they're really getting a referral. Go after everyone. You need one yes, and that starts off your business. Public transportation today cannot even solve for a third of your economy.
It's, of course, directly linked to the women, daily commute to the work, when they're stepping out of their houses.
I'm extremely lucky. My support came from what turned out to be my team. Everyone around us tends to tell us what we can't do. But I think we need to decide for ourselves what we can do.
Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. This is Mariam Jamal and welcome to another inspiring episode of Founder Interview Series by Women Entrepreneurs of Asia. Today we're joined by an inspiring entrepreneur who is redefining the way people commute in Pakistan. She is the visionary behind a tech-based mobility startup that is making everyday travel safer, smarter, and more affordable, especially for the women who face challenges while stepping out of their houses. Please welcome the founder of BusCaro, Maha Shahzad. Assalamu alaikum, Maha.
Waalaikum assalam. Thank you for having me, Mariam.
Thank you so much for coming over and taking out time for us. I'm so glad to have you here on our platform.
My pleasure.
Okay, Maz. So, I want to know your why. I always ask my guest the why behind their inspiration of their venture. I want to know what was the inspiration that made you form BusCaro.
So, great question. Look, I think most people have this dream they want to grow up and be entrepreneurs.
Uh-huh.
मेरा वो कोई कभी ख्वाब नहीं था.
Uh-huh.
ना है. I think, had an obsession with solving this particular problem. And there came a day when the only way I could solve it is if I started a company. Because companies that would hire me to do this work no longer existed. And so I think this life chose me. I did really choose this life. I think the people who are now my customers, I think the people who are now my suppliers, I think those are the people that really drove this. It was never me. I just had a lot of requests from consumers who were struggling to commute. And so I just launched. It wasn't like a well thought out sort of plan. I think it felt more like a responsibility.
That's great. That's nice. Entrepreneurs are about, I believe, problem solvers, right? It's more about that. They always come up with some idea that actually solves a problem. So I'm glad you did one.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Many of us know about BusCaro, right? We know the services you provide and all, but I would like you to tell my people what BusCaro is, what services are they providing, and which cities are they operational currently?
Sure. So we're mostly operational in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and then cities, adjacent to it. We have two business models that we run. One is B2B, which is self-explanatory. You have a company. I'll bring your employees to and from work. I'll bill you at the end of the month. You as the organization will pay me for it.
Oh, okay.
The reason you would opt in for this is obviously because of safety, because you need reliable transportation, you need vehicles to show up on time. Particularly for women, there's a massive safety issue around commute. And so that's one model that we operate. The second is B2B2C. Which basically means we partner up with different locations. It could be a school, it could be a university, a housing society. And then users within that specified area then sign up directly with us. So, for instance, at a school, different parents are going to sign their children up, and then we take them to and from school, have a parent app, so on and so forth, right? So, those are the two business models with which we operate.
That's wonderful. Also, while when you started BusCaro, I believe many of the entrepreneurs and their startups, they struggle a lot with gaining trust, right? So, and especially when we talk about mobility for women in Pakistan, so that's not an easy problem to solve, of course. So, what do you think? How did you convince the passengers and the drivers to trust on BusCaro's mission? How did this happen? Like what was that I would say toughest challenge that you had to face in the early days?
So I think, obviously all of these are challenges, right? I think getting the first client is the most difficult. It gets easier with the second one and the third one, right? Because for your first client, you're doing the sales. For the second one, they're really getting a referral. They're asking a friend of theirs who, you're already working with about the service quality, right? And so it's much easier over time. Initially getting the first few clients, I think, obviously that was difficult. But once we had that in, I think the quality of services spoke for itself. And so, it just got much easier over time. Similarly with supply, getting the first driver to come and work with you and convincing them that this is a good opportunity is a lot harder than, acquiring one today. But I think it's a process. And I think you have to, I believe in low conversions when starting anything and go after everyone. You need one yes, and that starts off your business.
What gap in Pakistan do you think the gap in the I would say Pakistan's transport system? You think that BusCaro fills that others might have overlooked?
I don't think
Everything is my yeah.
I don't think it's about overlooking. I think the fact of the matter is that public transportation today cannot even solve for a third of your economy. If we all decided we want to use public transport, and I'm not even getting into the safety and accessibility issues, right? But just a third of us could use it if we wanted to. Now, those are some pretty scary stats. When you look at something like ride hailing in this country, we've just seen, giants like Kareem and Uber also exit. That is no longer at an affordable price point simply because your fuel prices have skyrocketed in the last few years. And so the economics of those business looks very different, right? And so you don't really have any affordable, safe, accessible commute options in this country. And that's the space in which, we wish to operate. We're very obsessed with a daily commute use case. So for me, the priority is getting people to school, getting people to work, getting them back, right? You want to go to the mall on a Saturday? I'm not your girl. I'm not solving that problem today. And so I think when we talk about women in this country, one of the biggest roadblocks just in having access to even education and employment becomes safe commute, which is also affordable, right? So that's what we were trying to fill. What we realized is the children's space is a complete mess, right? And there's no safe commute for kids who are trying to get to and from school. And then that became an area that we got into. And 2/3 of our business today is women and children.
Yeah, right. Keeping in mind there are the other ride hailing services like Uber, not Uber, I won't say Uber now, in Drive and Yango. How do you think BusCaro is differentiating from them?
It's a different business model, right? What a ride hailing service offers to you is convenience,
Right.
on demand, last minute. And that's kind of what the advantage of a ride hailing service is. We are a lot more try to solve for a daily commute, right? Where you're scheduled with us every day. We pick you up, we take you, we bring you back. And so it's just a very, very different relationship with the customer.
Right. I also, if we compare ourselves to the West, the facilities over there are much better than if we compare in Pakistan. The safety, and then it's of course directly linked to the women's daily commute to the work when they're stepping out of their houses. So it's directly linked to the employment and the education. Everything is there.
Yeah, and if you look at Pakistan as a country, the cost of transportation, even for a man, is a very high percentage, right? It's close to 30%, which is crazy. But then when you take women, that number is suddenly over 50%, right? That is an absurd statistic. And so I think that affordability issue is really there. I think on top of that, of course, safety is a humongous issue. Obviously, women don't use bikes in the way that men use them, which is probably a most otherwise affordable option today. And so, that's basically the problem that we're trying to solve.
Great. Any impact stories that you've witnessed so far because of BusCaro, which made you proud of it?
Look, I think every booking is a step towards impact for us, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's always reassuring when you read comments from your users, particularly when they're coming in from women, they're coming in from parents of young children. I think every time a parent goes and signs their child up and trusts us with that commute, I think that's the validation that drives us forward. Um, and so that's what we're chasing.
That's nice. Uh, of course, when we're on this entrepreneurial journey, um, there are times when we feel low, and there are times when we are uplifted and cheered by the best people around us. So, I would like to ask you, who was I would say, who supported you the most in creating this platform?
I am extremely lucky. My support came from what turned out to be my team eventually. It was almost my team pushing me to do this. I had my founding team literally show up at my apartment. Um, we'd all been at Swivel prior to this, which of course had exited Pakistan. And I think everyone just kind of showed up to my apartment and said, okay, where do we start? And this business started out of my living room. And so, I think I played the smallest role in the creation of this company. I think whether it was my family, it was my friends, it was, my siblings, it was my colleagues. There was tremendous support for me.
You can name any one of them, of course.
I would need a few hours if I started naming people. But I mean, and I'm very, very grateful to be in that position.
Yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure. And then if we talk about a founder's life, being an executive and a founder of this venture, I'm sure there must be like very hectic schedules, like team meetings, to travel, to attending events and workshops, everything. How do you manage, this work life balance?
I'm going to be really toxic and say it. I don't think a work life balance exists.
Uh-huh.
I don't think people who want a work life balance should be founders of early stage companies. I think that you'll see weekends when you don't have time to breathe and you don't have the time to see your family. And I think you'll see a random Wednesday when your workload is fairly low and you can go to the mall in the middle of the day, right? But at any given time, I don't think that there is such a thing as a work-life balance. Like, I don't think it's on a day level. I don't think there's such a thing as I'm going to work from 9 to 5, no matter what, and then from 5 p.m. I'm off for the day, and then that's my time for my family. It doesn't work out that way. Emergencies can happen at any time. You could be in the middle of raising a round, launching a new client, whatever it is, right? And so I think on a year level, you can have a work-life balance where you say, okay, you know, July is a slow month for us. I'm going to go on holiday then. But come August, in my case, schools are reopening. There's 30 different launches happening. I won't have time to breathe. And so, I don't really believe in the 8-hour working day. I don't think it exists. I think work needs to happen. On days that means 3 hours, and on days that means 18 hours. And that's the life that I think entrepreneurs and people in entrepreneurial teams are signing up for.
True. I think being an entrepreneur, you have to wear all the hats. You are wearing all the hats. So first, you're doing all the jobs.
Yes, and those jobs cannot be specified, in my opinion, to a time frame, right?
Yes, it cannot be. That's true. It's like a 24-hour job.
It's a 20.
I was discussing this with Jaha that, entrepreneurship is often romanticized, but it comes with very tough challenges.
It does, right? Because when we look at entrepreneurs, we see them doing a podcast with you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is not what my day looks like, right? This is one small part of my day where the lighting is great and, everything looks very luxury. This is not the rest of the day. The rest of the day is full of challenges that can emerge at any point in time. And so I think, yeah, that 9 to 5 is absolute nonsense in my opinion.
Good. Funding is always a challenge for most of the entrepreneurs, right? How has your experience been in funding, in pitching BusCaro to the investors? What are the, I'd say, key strategies that worked for you, and were you ever underestimated?
Funding is not always a challenge. Funding in a recession, funding for a market like Pakistan in the later half of 2022 and onwards is a challenge. it wasn't a challenge before that, right? 2021, we had a field day. Fundraising is relatively not a challenge when you choose to build things that VCs want to back, right? And so if you are an entrepreneur whose priority it is to do something that a venture capitalist appreciates, then you pick a business model that they like these days, right? You pick AI today and you'll still get funding. Um, I was never building for investors. I build for my customers. And so I build the business that I care about. Whether an investor likes that business or not has never really been a concern to me. And for me, it was always going to be close to impossible. You'd seen Swivel shut down, Elif shut down, Uber exit,
Yeah.
Kareem shrink down in Pakistan, global mobility players not doing well. पाकिस्तान में फ्लड्स आए हुए थे जब मैं मोबिलिटी के लिए फंड रेज कर रही थी आपका इंटरनेट बंद हुआ हुआ था
Yes.
it was never a model that other people would appreciate. In fact, I've gone through two co-founders because they went on fundraising calls and things got tough and they ran for their lives. And I don't blame them. I think for me though, this is not a company for investors. This is a company for my customers, and investors who want to back that can be a part of that journey. And so that's how I've gone about it. I've, I raised a pre-seed round eventually of 1.5 million. We're just announced our seed round of 2 million. And so we've still gone ahead and raised $3.5 million. It's not been easy. It's been thousands of phone calls. Um, I look at fundraising as a simple low conversion game, right? It's like a sales pipeline, same way with your investors. For me, my conversion is about 1%. So for every check I want, all I need to do is get 99 other no's and I'll get that one yes. And I don't take it personally. I don't get emotional about that. I'm very little concern for all of that noise. Build the business, investors will show up.
Great. After becoming a founder, an entrepreneur, where do you think, what has entrepreneurship taught you that you didn't know before, like about yourself?
I've always been an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I have always been an entrepreneur. For me, I worked at Swivel like it was my company. I worked at Kareem like it was my company. I have worked at Food Panda like it was my company. I think that's an entrepreneurial mindset, which if you have, आप intern हो या CEO, आपका काम करने का स्टाइल एक ही होगा.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that in you, आप founder भी बन जाओगे तो आप 9 बजे जाओगे 5 बजे कहोगे जिम मेरी छुट्टी हो गई है, right?
Yeah, yes.
So for me, you can like show me a bunch of 20-year-olds and I can tell you right now which ones of those are going to end up being founders, right? Because that's that work ethic, that ownership, that looks the same. And so for me, am I more of an entrepreneur at BusCaro than I was at Swivel? I don't believe so. I ran that like it's mine. I run this like it's mine. But what I have learned, I think, from the timing of when I started BusCaro, because we lived in much easier times before that,
Hmm.
is I think just the sole importance of the right game. Because I think in previous roles of mine, because I wasn't out fundraising all the time, I had a lot more bandwidth to run the operations. And today I'm a solo founder. Fundraising takes up all my time. I don't really run BusCaro, my team does. And so I think having that founding team, having that team that shares that vision with you, that shares that passion with you, that to me is the most instrumental thing in whether or not you can make it. And I think spotting that talent is the number one job of an entrepreneur.
That's right. That's actually true. It's actually, I'd say, one of the trait that we can find in entrepreneurs, that they don't actually look at their time and they have to work the whole day and the whole week. There's no Sunday for them, as you mentioned. Anyway, um, let's talk about this skepticism. It is assumed that women founders, they face skepticism in male-dominated industries. So, have you experienced any such thing while building BusCaro?
I'm a woman. I'm in mobility. I deal with sexism every day. So do you. So does every woman I know,
Yeah.
right? I want to first talk about how to fix that, right?
Yeah, right.
Because there's no doubt about it. There is definitely sexism is real. It's not just in Pakistan. It's all over the world.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, I think that once a woman enters an organization, you start to see more coming in. Once a woman like you has gone on and done a podcast, it's going to be a lot easier for the next girl to convince her parents, to convince her husband, to convince her children, her family, her organization, her sponsors that this is something she can do because you have given her that example, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think over time, what also ends up happening is we have an education problem around a woman's capability, right? And when another woman or a man works with a woman, I think that clarifies for them. And then they start to hire more women. When we talk about entrepreneurship and the lack of females, there's many factors there, right? And we can talk about the funding statistics and they're terrible. But I also just want to say that if you look at all of the men who've raised money, and let's look at the startup ecosystem as an example, they've all had certain experience. Do the women have that same experience? That for me is $1 million question, right? Because for me, if a man has to have 15 years of experience in, I don't know, let's say e-commerce,
Yeah.
to come to me and pitch to me about him wanting to be a founder, an e-commerce business founder, then a woman I have the same expectation from, right? It's at the end of the day a business decision.
Yeah.
And so for me, this is a problem at the bottom of the funnel where are we getting enough women interns in who can grow into CEOs and then into founders? If we're not doing that and we keep obsessing with और लड़कियां founders क्यों नहीं हैं, जो लड़कियों के पास वो experience है वो आज founders बनी हुई हैं, right? You have a Halima
Yes.
running in Iran. You have a Maha running a BusCaro. You've, met with Jahan Ara, who's a phenomenal woman the other day. I saw the photo.
You have Azima.
Right? There are women who are here, but I feel like for an entrepreneur to become a founder, there is certain experience that is required that builds certain skill sets. And instead of crying about the lack of funding women get, we need to start getting women the experiences required to get that funding. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, it's a completely different ballgame, right? Because what we see is you hear about a woman getting married and people are like, oh, now she's not going to be able to work. Then you hear a woman's having a baby, oh, uski to company band ho rahi hai. Then you hear a woman's getting divorced, acha phir uski company band ho rahi hai. Pehle shaadi karne se company band ho rahi thi, ab todne se band ho rahi hai. And so there's a lot of this, right? And I think we need thick skin. And we need to work on changing that mindset. That's not going to happen overnight. But I think until then, we just need to show up with more examples of women who've made it against the odds.
That's right. That's true. Do you also see technology like AI, digital wallets, uh, shaping BusCaro's future offerings?
I think those are things that are shaping the economy altogether, right? And so yes, I mean indirectly there is a lot of overlap. In terms of the specific problem that we're trying to solve, you know, both of these things help enable that. They're never going to be at the forefront, however, of what it is that we're doing.
That's right. Where do you see BusCaro in next few years? And any plans for the expansion, I would say.
Yes, we do have plans of expansion. My priority as a market is Pakistan. We started here, we scaled to the KLI. We've opened up other cities around it. We're looking to potentially get out of Pakistan over the next year. And that is also in the works. There are other areas within Pakistan, of course, we've only scratched the surface that we really want to be focused on. Um, my vision for the company is very simple. That just needs to be a safe, affordable commute option for anyone who wants it. Everyone doesn't have to be my user. You cannot be my user because you can afford a car, and that's great. But if this is what your need is, you should have that option like you would in any other country. And I think that's all I'm here to ensure.
That's right. How about launching BusCaro in some rural areas or
I can't,
less community?
I can barely, I mean, there's just so much potential even the cities that we're in right now. And there's so much demand that we're not being able to meet that it doesn't make business sense, excuse, to go and start opening other cities, right? आपकी कराची की डिमांड यहाँ पूरी नहीं हो रही है तो हैदराबाद खोलने की क्या पॉइंट बनता है फिर उस वक्त.
Right.
But yes, over time, absolutely.
I'm sure. Okay, so Maha, we're gonna do a quick fire round with you, and like that rapid fire rounds that people do. My one is quick fire round. I do with my guests. So, all right. So I want you to answer these couple of questions. Tea or coffee on a long work day?
Coffee any day of the week.
Wow. Favorite female entrepreneur who inspires you?
I think Halima from Iran is kick-ass.
Great. One quality as an entrepreneur that everyone should have.
Grit.
Biggest stress buster after a long day.
Hmm. Um, hmm, aren't they all?
It's a quick fire round. Come on. Ma,
Hmm.
let's pass the question. Okay. If you weren't running BusCaro, what would you be doing?
Solving exactly the same problem.
Okay. Fine. Great. What's that one thing you always carry with you while traveling?
My fort.
Okay. If you could gift every woman in Asia one thing besides safe transport, what would it be?
Self-belief.
Wow.
That's all we need, and we don't have it.
That's right. Um, if your entrepreneurial journey was a movie, what title would it be?
I'm gonna be cheesy, but I think it would be called Against All Odds.
Good. Okay, which Pakistani city do you think BusCaro needs the most?
Genuinely, I think this is such a mass Pakistan problem that it would be unfair to name one.
Okay. Um, the end with this. Okay. Any message to aspiring women entrepreneurs who want to build something impactful, and all to all those women as well who do not feel ready to become an entrepreneur, who think they're not ready, and who even have ideas in their minds, but they're always there's this, I think, this that imposter syndrome or something, which it doesn't
No
go
one
ahead.
is ready until they've actually done the job, right?
Right.
You need to jump in when you don't feel ready. You need to jump in when you're afraid. You need to grab the opportunities when you're not ready for them, when you're not prepared for them, and then just figure out how to swim. Um, I think, I mentioned this self-belief, right? I think that's what is so important because I think everyone around us tends to tell us what we can't do. But I think we need to decide for ourselves what we can do. And I think that's something that every woman needs to hold on to. And we all have imposter syndrome, including me and probably you. But that's a battle we have to fight internally.
That's right. To end this, I want you to share one book, one habit, and one belief that every entrepreneur should build.
Outliers, um, deliberate creation. What was the third question?
One book, one habit, and one belief.
Habit. Start your day on time.
Mm-hmm.
Start your day on time before the rest of the world does, and things will move in at a very different pace.
Right. And one belief.
Deliberate creation, which essentially is the idea of manifestation and the idea of looking at the end and then figuring out how to get there instead of obsessing with all the roadblocks along the way.
Maha, so we have some gifts for you from our official gift partners, Tower and Vatica. And you guys should also use it because Vatica has all natural ingredients. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maha, for sharing your journey and your insights and the challenges with us. What BusCaro is doing is it's just not solving a problem of transportation, but I believe that is actually solving the access the empowerment, so many other things. So, of course, I believe when passion meets purpose, great things happen.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Maha.